Well, hello there, Apple Bites. This is your Apple Bite Written Writ Ralph talking to you, and we are doing Comix in the Bronx. Thanks to our friend here, Derrick Charles. Our guests today are Dirk Manning and Dylan and Lane. And of course, this is a full writers panel because Derrick does his own book, Ninja Express. So it's an all-around writers group tonight. So I hope you guys are ready to have all the questions out there, get the stuff going, listen to what's going to happen, have some fun, get creative, all the good stuff.
We're ready.
All the things.
All the things. You know what I'll do? I'm going to start with this because Dirk, you've already written a book on it.
Even a second edition.
Exactly.
Wow.
I got to get you updated, man. I got to get you the second edition, my friend.
I got the second edition.
Oh,
but this is my edition, and this one's
That's
loved.
the old school, right? That's the
original. This one's loved.
That's right.
So, Dirk, why don't you start off and tell the people, give them an idea of what it is to write comics.
Okay, well, you spend most of the time not writing comics. You spend most of the time thinking about maybe I should write a comic today. Once you get past that, after a couple of months or maybe years, there's really no time scale. I mean, there's some people in the business who are able to write like 5-6 comics a month. Don't ask me how they do it. But it's pretty much you're trying to take an idea, work out all the kinks and get it down on paper and then bring it to life with probably a lot of collaboration. You have to work with an editor, you have to work with letter, you have to work with an artist. And hopefully if all those people are just the right amount of sane, you'll get a book done.
Need a little bit of crazy in there, but yes.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Being a writer is not a job, it's a curse.
It is.
That's true.
And I keep getting a -1 over my head every 10 minutes.
I think the worst one for me is when I'm running around and the ideas are flowing, and you got to throw these ideas wherever you can throw them. Whether it's the nice little phone or whatever notebook you have. Yes, folks, I still have notebooks. I still do notebooks. And the problem is when you don't have somewhere to put them. Because if they stay here, they turn into other things.
There was one time I woke up in the middle of the night and I was like, this is the greatest idea for a comic book I'll ever have. And I'll write it down in the morning. And of course, I didn't remember in the morning.
Oh.
So it's...
You always gotta have something right next to you.
I thought you were going to go in the other direction where it's like the middle of the night. You have this idea, like you finally lay down, close your eyes. I lay down to get my 2.7 hours of sleep, and all of a sudden I shoot open oh my god, that's incredible, and grab my Post-it note, grab a pen, and write down and lay back down for another 20 minutes, whatever. Wake up, and the next morning you look at it and it's like,
this is the stupidest idea ever.
What does this even mean?
Classic Seinfeld.
It's like who's this? Yeah, it's like who's the potato man and why is it man? What does this mean? But in the middle of the night it's brilliant, right? But
that's only second to shower thoughts.
That's true.
Oh yeah,
I agree. I feel like the worst one though is not even the gibberish. It's the fact that you look at it and you thought you wrote something, but it's just lines.
Yeah, it's hieroglyphics. It's like, what does it even mean? Or I've done the thing where I write a 1 or 2 word note, right? And to this day, it's like I have an envelope with some of that stuff, and I'm still hoping one day I'm going to take it out, and it's just going to click. Or it'll be a bunch of initials, right? So.
Let's see. John says, what I like to do is take the approach of writing my projects, sometimes like a short film or a mini TV series. It helps me take the approach of being able to process it at my speed.
Shout out to John. He's
Yes,
our
John.
friend. We met him many moons ago at a convention in Michigan. So thanks for tuning in, John.
A writer and artist himself.
Michigan's a great state for conventions too. So
Yeah.
many. So
Oh,
many
yeah?
conventions here.
I gotta say, like, I tend to write shorts. When it comes to the long form of stories, I'll get bogged down after a while. And what I do is I write a bunch of shorts, and sooner or later they all form a bigger story. Because
Yeah.
I think the shorts have nothing to do with each other, and the next thing I know, oh, it's a story.
Nice.
It's funny. I've written, well, the two comics I've published since I've been writing have been Ninja Express, which is a more long form, ongoing comic series, and Cuban Crusaders, which was like an anthology series. And I actually found the shorter something is, the harder it is to get it done. At least for me, because I was like, man, I want to make a 3-page story. How am I going to have a beginning, middle, and end
Mm-hmm.
that feels at least somewhat satisfactory in this 3 pages? But then again, you don't want it to just drag on for 20 pages where nothing happens. So,
That's the real talk. Anybody who really gets involved in writing will tell you writing a good short story is infinitely harder than writing a long story. My first series, Nightmare World, was a series of 52 8-page stories. And I would set it up. We originally published online 2 pages a week. So in those 8 pages, every 2 pages, we needed to have kind of like a cliffhanger beat, right? And it's like writing a song or like writing a poem, right? You get into that rhythm. But writing, like you said, writing short stories and getting a complete experience and not just cheating and starting in the 3rd act. Right? It's very complicated. It's a lot trickier than a lot of people give it credit for. A lot of people say, "Oh, I'm just going to write a short story." I'm like, bro, no, listen. That's not what you think. Not to do it, not just like a snob, but not to do it well.
I completely get it. I it's funny because with me it's the opposite. It's just trying to make those short stories into the bigger pieces. Because in my head I'm like, it's done. All the stuff's in there. You don't need any more information. But I can agree though. But it's not done. The short's not done because usually it's just a snippet of a moment, and then there's so much more, and then people go, "What happens next, Ralph?"
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I'm like, okay,
The
cool.
compliment you can get as a writer is what happens next.
Yeah.
You don't people read it and be like, yeah, all right.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank God that's over. Or they're grudge reading it, right? They're like, I hate reading it. Like, I'm this far in, I gotta get it done. It was an 8-page story, sir.
Longest 8 pages in my life.
Yeah, right.
I gotta say, like, one of the reasons I like your book so much, Dirk, is because you until that moment where I read it in your book, I wasn't thinking about it, which is the relationship between the writer and his crew, the writer and the artist, the writer and the inker, the writer, and especially because usually the writer is the one running the show. Sometimes he's not, but usually, for us indies, we're the ones running the show, so we got to figure out what the artist is going to do. We're going to figure all this stuff out. And I never thought about the fact that, you have to have this relationship with these people because, in your mind, you're like, you'll just hire an artist to do whatever you need them to do. And then in that moment, I was like, wait a minute, but if you hire the wrong artist, your project will not go where you need it to go.
Yeah. And there's still going to be wrong. One of the things I've learned over the years, especially, is that there are people who just take a very business-minded approach, and it's almost mercenary, right? You pay me, I draw, that's it, that's done. But especially early in my career, that's not at all how I operated. But it does also lend itself to the truth that, there's 3 types of friends: friends for a reason, friends for a season, friends for a lifetime, right? And sometimes, and I think one of the things we have to be careful of is when we're starting, like the first artist that you work with, or any artist you work with, like, this is going to be it forever. I think I talked about right or wrong. It's like there's so many cases where maybe the writer will blow up or the artist will blow up and can't necessarily take the other person with them, right? Ryan Ottley, who does Invincible, started on a little online type comic called Ted Noodleman Bicycle Delivery Boy. you know, and I know the writer of that series, and he's a very good writer, and he's written a fair amount of books. He's not Invincible level, right? He didn't make it to that point in his writing career, and that's not to say he didn't have the talent, didn't have the drive, anything else. It just didn't happen, and not even Ryan, who jumped that high up, could get him there. So it's but you're right, that relationship is important, because you want to see your friends succeed. And I think that's one of the things that it's very easy to say, but it's something that I feel you really have to adopt and own that mindset about, I want to celebrate my friends and my colleagues winning and doing better. And a lot of people say that until it happens. And then, then the nitpicking starts, or like the snide comments on social media, or all of a sudden they're not returning your messages as quickly. So the relationships are important in any business you do, right? And recognizing that, but also recognizing the three categories of friendships that exist too in business and in life is, I think, equally important.
Completely. And then to that point, because it's funny, because you don't think about it. You go, okay, I need an artist. So you just look for an artist. Then you realize after a while, especially when you're thinking about the relationships, you go, no, I need an artist that can do specifically what I want them to do. Because if you hire any artist, sometimes your series isn't going to look, or your book is not going to look the way it's supposed to look, or the way you're envisioning it, because it's not the right artist for the project. It's not that the artist is bad. It's just not the right artist for the project.
And I think, and I'll volley or shut up after this too. I think the other reason that relationship piece is so important is, let's be real, there ain't a lot of money in this, especially when you're doing creator-owned books and independent books and things like that, right? You want to find people who, it's funny, Joshua Ross, who one of my longest collaborators, we've collaborated together for about 20 years now, right? And the new book we have on Kickstarter right now, RSVP ESP, he illustrated that book. So we've been talking a lot this last month, and we just had this conversation the other day. It's like, we don't do this for the money. We do it because we love it.
Yeah.
Right. And the money is nice when it comes in. And sometimes you're lucky, you do get a little money out of something. But we do this because these are things that we want to see in the world. And that's why finding that relationship with someone that you can gel with. I mean, the fact that Joshua Ross has not been a friend of mine, but someone I've worked with for 20 years, puts him in pretty rarefied air. Most people can barely stand me for 20 minutes, let alone, people out there that have known me for 20 years and supported me for 20 years and things like that. Or longer. Those relationships are very special. They're very special, and you need to honor those and treasure those when they exist.
Completely agree. So here's the question, and it'll be the first part of the question, because so we're writers, we got this script, we're working with this artist. Which way do we go? And I know all the audience is out there going, yeah, how do you do a comic book script? But it's not a simple answer. So I'm going to let you guys answer. Anybody?
What do you mean by which way do you go? Like what do you mean by that question?
Well, the fact that you're writing the comic book script is, it needs to be done a certain way, but it can't be done a certain way unless you understand who you're writing the script for, what they need when you're writing the script, what's going on with the script. Are you going to do a Stan Lee style, or are you going to give them all the information they need and not going to let them do anything themselves? Again, and I know that a lot, because it's one of the questions I get asked all the time. It's like, oh, I just need a script, Ralph. I just need you to show me a script. Like, I can show you 10,000 scripts, and they're all going to look different.
Yeah. Man, that totally does depend on who you're working with. Like for Star Side, and then for our next project we've been working on for Pitches, the devil himself. We've been working with Jordan. So we've been working together as a trio for 8 years at this point. And
2017.
Yeah, so 8 years about. And I remember it took us a while. Maybe it took us a couple of issues. We had a big pre-production time before issue 1 was even finished, with concepts and just aligning all of our visions for it. But part of that was talking through what that script is going to look like and how much information does he want to have? How much are we, Dylan and I, when we first started doing this, we approached the script like a screenplay because that's how we see it in our mind, as like moving images. And that's still how we write for Jordan. We get together after the screenplay version is written, and we'll panel it out, the three of us together. And that's how we have found works for us. But we had to talk about, okay, how much of the world does he want us to describe? Exactly. We even went so far as to discuss, like, imagine like a 30-foot radius of, we talked about like physically in the fictional world, like how much should we be envisioning, how much should we be describing, and what should we leave up to him? I don't think we ever really, that was just part of the discussion that we had for a long time. We never really said, okay, here is the, distance that we need to describe. But, we went through a lot of how do we want to envision this together? How do we want to define this as writers before we hand it over to him? And yeah, I don't know. I can't even describe concretely where we ended up with that. Just that, like, paneling together has been it's been so great. It's probably our favorite way to work. Yeah, I don't know. Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I guess I don't want to monopolize the question, but I guess, we like to view it in like sort of screenplay form because, I think for me, I don't like this idea of being like, well, here's this page and here's what all the panels will be, and then we move on to the next one. I think, Dirk, you brought something up about like, collaborating is really, I think, where comic creation works best. And I feel like, we maybe, each of us individually may have an idea of what a panel should be, but I think when we kind of filter that through the three of us, we get perhaps what might be the best outcome.
Yeah, because it actually gives Jordan a lot of freedom. Instead of us saying, okay, and this is panel 3 and it's a close up on this character and they're saying this, it gives, the artist who has the artist's eye and the artist's skills the freedom to say, I think this is the way that we should compose the action that's going on here. And it gives us, and then like, usually he will come up with things that are not at all what I envisioned in my mind and are so much better. Because of course, so it's a great way to do things.
Completely agree.
Yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head. Now, admittedly, I came up under the script writing kind of methodology of like Alan Moore was one of the first scripts I saw, which if you ever seen an Alan Moore script,
yeah,
they're out there now. Like he literally spends like 8 pages describing like a button, right? And the joke was like on Watchmen, like Dave Gibbons took highlighters and like just highlight, like here's the parts I need. But I'm not that bad, but especially once I know who I'm working with and we work together a lot. However, I love what you said, and I think you're exactly right. I write a very full script, and I will write it exactly, panel by panel, shot by shot. But then when I deliver it to the artist, I was telling them the same thing. This is how I see it, but you're the artist. And 99 times out of 100, if they change something, it's for the better. Because although I've spent 20-some years doing this, and I think visually in that regard, to your point, I don't have the artist's eye the way they do a lot of times, right? And they'll see it differently. And talking about those relationships, Raph, when I work with artists who I've known a long time, like a Joshua Ross, again, it's funny. Just today on the letterer, look, it kind of like shot me a message and was laughing about something because he goes, I like how Josh totally ignored this part of the script and just did it this way. He was lettering the page and he just started he messaged me, just started laughing about it. But I'm like, that's my guy, man. It's like he knows, and I told, but it works better his way. And he's like, oh, it totally does. But he just blew you right off about it. He gets it. He knows, right? In fact. he knows what I was thinking better than I described it, and then did it that way, which made it literally one of my favorite pages in RSVPSP. He totally ignored what I said and went a different direction with it, but still got to the essence of what it should have been. But that's where that relationship comes in. We speak a language with each other, writer and artist, that we get it, right? Not a lot of other people can communicate that way.
Yeah,
I 100% agree. I also when I first started writing, I just Googled comic book script, and literally a Watchmen script came up. So I was like, okay, cool. I guess Alan Moore's kind of famous. I'm sure he knows what he's doing.
Just a little.
But so yeah, I still write it. I write panel to panel, but that's mainly for me to track how much I need to get done on a given page, so I meet my page quota. So that's me like trying to control myself to make sure I get what I need done. When I give it to the artist, I think a good artist that cares about the script that they're working on is going to make it their own. They're going to add something in. They're going to do something with the background. I go into who's in the panel, what's going on in the panel, but I leave it up to the artist to determine like the point of view, what actions being done, that sort of thing. I think any good comic that gets created, it's a little bit of the writer, a little bit of the artist, a little bit of the colorist. It's a collaborative work. Yeah, I feel like if you don't have the best team with you, they'll read the script, do it 100% according to the script, and it'll be less than for that.
Right.
If the artist isn't putting their heart, their sweat into it as well.
And I know that it's a great point. And I think that's why that relationship is so important. You got to work with someone that is doing. And that's not to say I haven't worked with people who have hired strictly on a commercial basis and they've done great work, but you're exactly right. When that relationship is there and when they're feeling, when they believe in what you're doing, it's you feel it, man. It's like a song. It's like music. You feel it on the page, and it's just like there it is when they get it. You know, you can. I feel a lot of corporate comics kind of sometimes you can tell the ones that are almost kind of stale because it's like they're just not vibing like they would in like a band or something. Right? Yeah, you're exactly right.
And you see that too. You as soon as you can feel it as you read through these comics, as you look through these comics, you can feel when the team's working with each other. You can feel when the team's fighting each other. You can feel when somebody's phoning it in, and you see that a lot. Somebody phoning it in. It's like whatever. You know, it actually showcases in the book itself.
Yeah, it feels sterile. I always tell upcoming creators, even if you've seen the movie, read The Crow by James O'Barr, just for one of the most visceral, and mind you, he wrote it and drew it himself, but still, just when you talk about visceral, raw emotion on the page, and it's like, that's like the dragon I'm always chasing, you know, and so sometimes I get there, right? But just getting that sense of pathos, whether it's for a joke or whether it's for something scary or whatever it is, just that emotion, that synergy on the page, you can feel it. You can feel it. And I like how you mentioned the colorist too. Even the colorist and stuff like that, when you bring them into the process and bring them in even to the writing process to an extent about this is the vibe we're going for. What do you think? And you get their input too. It just creates a magical experience.
Yeah. I grew up playing in a band. And so, you know, I joke, the three of us, me, Lane, and Jordan, who's our artist, we joke that we're kind of like a 3-piece band, essentially, you know, and it's true. You know, there are times where I might be maybe down on the project that we're working on. And then once we see the art that Jordan gives back you know, you look at it and you're like, all right, that's kind of cool. You know, it really kind of rejuvenates the soul a little bit, you know, and I think what is really beautiful when it happens is when like, you know, we as writers are able to actually help guide Jordan as the artist. And he's like, well, that's actually a really cool idea. This works. And then he in turn will also give feedback to writing. And so there's this really good synergy there. You know, nobody's like, no, this is my, I do this.
Yeah.
Stay in your lane. It's
How
very
dare
much,
you?
yeah, it's that collaboration and that openness. I mean, I think we all have our cagey moments. If you catch someone on a bad day, it happens.
Definitely.
You know what I mean? I'm very much, if I'm in a bad mood and a creative criticism gets thrown my way, it definitely hits a lot harder than if I was very happy. But the end of the day, when we have the finished product, I feel like all of the collaboration and the kind of picking each other up with our skills kind of helps get us across that finish line. And
And for the record, no one rocks harder than a 3-piece band.
That's right, because they have to.
I did music journalism for 20 years, and I'm telling you, the most rocking bands I've seen of all time are 3 pieces because they just go. And some of the best bands, some of my favorite bands of all time have been 3-piece bands because they go. So right on, man. I'm with you.
Thank you.
Funny because the first band that pops into my head is Nirvana. So first band, I was like, oh, Nirvana, 3-piece. And each piece of those things rocks by itself, which is whoa.
They defined and solidified a genre.
Yeah.
Maybe
I see John is agreeing with us. It looks like the consensus is that we write like screenplay style thing, and it is a screenplay style thing, but at the same time it isn't, and that's always hard to explain to people who are trying to come into the business now, and they're trying to get in, and you're trying to tell them, well, it's a screenplay, but it's not a screenplay. It's a comic strip, but it's not a comic strip, and it's so hard to just narrow it down. Which brings me to my other question. What do you think is everybody else gets help when it comes to comic books? Writers have a couple of books here and there, just like Dirk's book, but I find that when I was looking for books on how to write comics, they were few and far between, and they were hard to find.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like the writer will figure it out, and you're like, hey.
That's writer's trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, you had to Google a comic script, and then you get the behemoth of the
Exactly.
script.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
Yeah. Kind of like that joke of like how to draw like a duck or whatever. It's like step 1, draw a circle. Step 2, draw the rest of the duck or something like that.
Right. There's no writing in the 3-piece.
There it is. That's it, right? No room for fat, man. It's all muscle.
But I feel one issue with starting to write a comic book is there is no one right way to do it.
No.
There's a lot of wrong ways to do it, but there's definitely no one right way. I mean, back in the day, there was the DC method and the Marvel method, and I feel like a lot of people find something in between. Also, a lot of people cross over from theater and script writing and bring that aspect into comic writing. So I think if you want to write a comic, you should find what style works best for you and the creative team that you're working with.
Bingo. And
be open to adjust that so that your team flows.
Yeah, absolutely. I think too. I think one of the the things about Lane and myself when we started writing is that like we just went for it. I think we were really excited to do this to the point where we kind of bypassed the how do other people do it, and we just kind of were like, well, let's just do it how we think we want to do it. Mm-hmm. And I think too, in like finding our artist, we went through making sure that he was cool with this process of how we're doing it, and because he'd never done it either, it was just this kind of weird, discovery of like, oh yeah, let's just do it. And that's what I mean, not to bring back the music thing, but like when I was playing in a band, my good buddy, he didn't really know music very well, but he was just writing stuff that was really cool. You know what I mean? And so it's this idea of like, you just do it.
Yeah.
And then if you think it's really cool, you just go with it. As long as you have, teammates on that, can work with that style and just like roll with it.
And then you pick stuff up along the way. Like, you know, now that we've been doing this for as long as we have, we've talked to so many people about how they do it. We've read so many other things. We've, you know, and figured out what works and what doesn't work for us. And you learn, you are always learning and always adapting and evolving.
I love something that you two said earlier, too, about how you first write like a screenplay, but then you turn it into a comic script. Because I think that's one thing that's so important is comics are their own medium. Mm-hmm. And there's a very specific way to write a comic book effectively. You know, movies move. Comics create the illusion of movement, right? And I recommend to people all the time, it's like, you know, they, even before you read like Right or Wrong, read Understanding Comics by Scott McCloud.
Love that book.
Yeah.
I always tell people, like you're saying, Dirk, that's the book that I tell people as soon as they ask me, I go, pick all three of them up and read them, then come back and talk to me.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about you, man, but like Understanding Comics like lives in my head. Mm-hmm. Right. It just, I'll never look at like an electric socket the same way ever again. You know, they do little things in that book, but you have to understand the craft, right? Yeah. There's like a comment made earlier about there's no hiding a three-piece band. It's exactly that. It's like you have to know your role and you have to know the medium and you have to know what you are seeking to do with it. Comics are very much an American-made medium. You know, comic books and jazz are the two American art forms. But people have been telling stories with pictures since beginning of time, right? It's such a powerful way to communicate very important messages and stories. But if you're going to do this at a professional level and you're going to do this to a point where you want to achieve the results you want to, and you got to understand the craft.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, understanding comics is huge because people say all the time, well, I have this movie I want to make into a comic. I'm like, do you know what that means? It's like, you might as well be saying like, I have a song and I want to make it a movie. Right? They're different things. I mean, I'm not saying it can't be done. Once is incredible, one of my favorite movies, but I mean, they're different things, right? You got to do it different ways.
No, the rules break them.
Yeah. Exactly.
100%. Another good resource is every once in a while, if a writer or a writing team that you like comes out with a graphic novel, they might include a script sample in the back of the graphic novel. I love when people do it. I love when they do like the page breakdowns. So like if you're looking to get into comics and you have a favorite creator or favorite team, look for their graphic novels and see what extras they have in the back, whether it's even just an interview, whether it's a script, whether it's page layouts and whatnot. That's a great resource if you're looking to start.
Yeah.
No, a great point. Or have any of you done a thing where you like find a comic you really like, a story you really like, then you try to reverse engineer it?
Yeah.
Like, how would I write this? Like, how did they write this? Like, there's 5 panels on it, you know, like an exercise like that when you're getting started are crucial as well. But yeah, I love back matter in books. You're exactly right.
I'm happy you said that, Dirk, because it's funny because people always ask you what inspired you to write comics, and it's the G.I. Joe issue where there's no words.
It's a silent issue. Yep. So good.
Yeah.
So good.
And people go, but nobody wrote that. That's the thing. That was written.
That was written. Yeah, Larry Hama wrote it that way.
Exactly.
In fact, I just bought, I think it was last year, they did that re-release of that issue.
Oh, beautiful, man. Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, yeah, I want a copy of this again. You know? I had one back in the day, but it's like you rolled it up in your back pocket, you know, and you drove back from the drugstore with it or whatever. Yeah. But you're right. That silent issue is so, man.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
Did anyone ever hear of the comic? It came out a couple years ago, Step by Bloody Step.
Yes.
Yeah.
Entire graphic novel, no dialogue throughout the whole thing.
I love that.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Amazing.
And it's hard to do stuff like that because you know you're, especially as writers, we want to write, we want to talk, we want to tell the people, and sometimes we just need to show the people, which is the problem that we run into, isn't it? Sometimes we want to tell too much instead of showing.
Actually, I'll use this opportunity to do a quick little personal plug. I've written a silent one-shot comic that I'm working with an artist on that will hopefully kickstart this fall and winter. I love a silent story, and visual storytelling is so cool like that. So keep your eyes open.
That's when you know if you understand the medium. Can you do without words?
Yeah.
And in Nightmare World years ago, Nightmare World the Complete Collection's out there now. There's a story in Nightmare World the Complete Collection where it's a stick figure Wolfman story, and they only speak in cuneiform. So they speak in like symbols, right? So like they're talking about the day, and like the one person, like the one word balloon is like an old fashioned adding machine, and then I remember I had to look it up. It's like I put in the script like, what are those little things with the balls that clack back and forth on the desk? And then the husband like had like an adding machine and like the ball clacker thing, and then the wife had like the toilet scrubber and like and vacuum. Because again, that's something you can only do in comics, and you can make, like I said, you can make silent films, but to tell a story in still images with no words, that's when you know you're doing it right. If you can peel off the words and you can still follow what's happening, that's where the action is.
And of course, it also takes a lot of trust in the artist to be able to translate that, so you don't need words.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Can they tell a story? Can they tell a story in facial expressions and things like that? Or are they just drawing people in spandex, punching other people in spandex, right? Not that there's anything wrong with that either. I love Invincible as much as the next person, but right, can you hold those moments when you're storytelling?
It's so funny because like we were talking about it last night on the show, because I love Christopher Reeve's Superman, and people are always going, who's going to believe that Clark Kent and Superman aren't the same person? But I'm like, if you watch Christopher Reeve's Superman, you can see the difference. Especially that scene where he's about to reveal himself to Lois.
Yep.
He takes the glasses off and he becomes a whole other person. And then as soon as he puts those glasses back on, it's a whole other person again. Yeah. And I'm like, dude, right there, you can see, and I've seen it before where somebody will take off their glasses and nobody will know that's them.
True, honestly.
Yeah, but you're right. His posture changes everything. It's just like he takes up the glasses, or it's just like he just grows. Yeah, he puts it back on. So yeah.
One of the greatest scenes, and that's the moment I use to tell people, see, Superman and Clark Kent, two different people.
Years later, Frank quietly did something in All-Star Superman that was so cool with Grant Morrison, where Superman, he draws a little more buff, right? But when he's Clark Kent, he literally like relaxes all his muscles so he looks dumpy. He looks like grumpy and overweight.
Yeah.
And then when he's like Superman, he's like he comes back to his natural state, right? And he's not like pushing it all down. So that little stuff like that's what makes his medium so amazing.
Exactly. I think that's one of the things that bothers me about the fans, or maybe not the fans, but it's the people out there who want to break things down, break things apart, and you're just writing, and they all they want to do is like shit on your parade. In other words,
there's a swear word.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
You'd say you'll be the first to break it.
I'm always the first to break it.
Now.
I said we shoot.
Yeah, and it bothers me because if you don't like the character, you don't like the character. You don't have to mess. Dude, just don't like the character. Why do you have to take it away from other people?
For years, I said there was no third Karate Kid movie. Now, Cobra Kai changed the game. Cobra Kai made everything count, except for the next Karate Kid, which is a bummer. I know they wanted to bring her in as well eventually, but I mean, if you don't like it, you're right. What bothers me more than anything is that people take the time to talk about things they don't like. It's like, why? Use that same time, that same energy, talk about something you do. You know what I don't like? No, because I don't publicize it. But everyone knows what I do like, because that's the point. That's the name of the game. You talk about the things you like. Just because someone else might like this other thing instead. That's fine. Cool. You talk about what you like. I'll talk about what I like, and our vibe will find our tribe.
That's right. I will say it is worth it to consume things that you don't like, because we've learned a ton about how we want to write comics and how we want to make things and what stories we want to tell by reading and watching things that we like and don't like. And then we can see like, oh, here's what we don't like about this thing, so we want to avoid that. But we're not, going online and saying, you wrote a bad thing, you should be
Exactly.
I completely agree, because you sit there and you go, I didn't like that. I'm gonna make sure that I didn't do that. That's not gonna happen. But I'm not out there going, well, you see.
Yeah, there's plenty of times I've watched a movie or a TV show or read a book or even a book without pictures, right?
Those exist.
I get to a point, and you guys all know as creators, right? It's trickier, right?
Yeah.
Just like as a musician, I'm sure it's trickier to listen to music, right? You know, it's like, you read them like, man, they really had it up until this point.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a horror movie I watched recently, and I'm not going to name it because I'm going to criticize it here a little bit, but I loved it, and there's some genius stuff in the movie. But they got to a point when, whether they meant to or not, they inadvertently lied to the audience, right? And they did a thing where it's like, if this person, I guess I'll give it to it, if this person truly does not really have supernatural powers, how do they know about this? It's like, you lied to the audience, right? Or
when you're not live, I want to know what movie you're talking about, because I'm so intrigued and I love it.
Listen, this was a very, I liked 80% of this movie, so I guess I'm I liked 80% of the movie, but I don't like to promote things I don't like, so I'm not going to say it was Heretic.
You can put in the chat.
I'm
curious too now.
Yeah, I'll put it in the private chat, right. Yeah.
So here's the big question, because we're getting to the nitty gritty of things, but we have to figure out how we're going to get it into the nitty gritty of things. So how do we get this idea? And we know, I know you guys know what I'm talking about. How do we get this idea down to what we need to do? Because I've heard Dylan and Lane talk when they're talking about their book and all the stuff they have planned and this and that, and it feels like this. Same thing with Dirk. When we're talking about his book and what he wants to do and all this and that, it feels like this. And Charles too. I can hear him. He says, "Dude, listen to Charles talk. He says a great story." So, how do you guys get all that stuff to work into what you want done? Because it sounds simple, but it's not.
It's tough because you'll start off with this massive idea. And then you'll realize, wow, this comic is going to take 10 to 20 years. This saga, this epic saga, is going to take hundreds of issues. And honestly, for anyone out there thinking about starting a comic, my first comic that I did was Ninja Express. And I did exactly that. I was like, this is going to be an epic. It's going to have like 30 volumes. All the characters are gonna have ups and downs, blah blah blah. And that's a big commitment, especially if you're not the sole creator team. Start with something small. So with Cuba Crusaders, for that, I had this idea about being a superhero being a 9-to-5 job. Then I just literally wrote down every funny superhero character I could think of, and then out of that I picked the 10 or so that I thought I could get the most mileage out of. I put them in the first issue. You are gonna have to cut so much, and I would say read your script, read your story outline, and then ask yourself, how does this add to the overall story? And if it doesn't, or if it's small, cut it. And sometimes you're going to cut something you really love. But that might find its way into your next story.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not gone. It's just put on hold.
I think you said something too that was really important. It's something that I think through my years of like schooling and like writing papers and stuff, I always bypassed. But as of late, I feel like I've been more into is outlining. And so with Starside, you know, we just jumped right in, very similar to you, that it's just, it was going to be this big epic story. And, you know, and then as we've been working on it, it's like, oh, we can chop off that arc and all this. And now it's actually shaping up to be, you know, still a long story, but shorter one. But with our smaller mini series that we're working on, it was, once I sort of had this outline, you know, I realized things like it can be modular, you know what I mean? So if you feel like, okay, I really want to push this point in this part of the story, you know, you can add some bullet points there that kind of get across the theme or a character developing moment. But then you realize, oh, this is actually pretty full because it's just in an outline form. I can just move this, bring it around here, you know, like it's very easy to play with. And, you know, I think it's super important, especially if you're writing a smaller story. I mean, obviously a big story as well, but, you know.
I also want to bring this full circle to what we were talking about at the very beginning of writing things down whenever they come to you. Is like, that's, for me, that's my answer of how do you start this when you have this big idea, these lofty goals, and it feels not concrete at all, is just start by writing down whatever little idea pops into your head. And like, I just have countless Google Keep notes and just like Google Docs of many pages of, and like this story has this document, this story has this document, and like this vibe has this document. Like there's just notes everywhere, and eventually they will become, like you were talking about, Ralph, like these little ideas, they come together and they'll make a story. And like if anyone's like me, you can't always control which story you get an idea for at any given moment. So that's why you always have to have these running notes for everything. And then, then maybe one day you'll feel like, you know what, I have a lot going on for this story over here. I'm going to concentrate on this. I'm going to take all these little ideas. I'm going to turn them into an outline. I'm going to like, just start writing it. Just start writing it on paper or on your phone or whatever. And like put the words down, and then it becomes concrete.
And going back to what we talked about earlier as well, you're all exactly right. The other side of this too is knowing the medium. If you're doing, and let's just use round numbers, a one-shot comic, and let's call it 20 pages, even though it's 22, let's just say 20 just for funsies. Your average page has 5 panels, which means you have to tell a complete story in 100 still images. And that's if you do 5 panels a page. Throw in a splash page, you just lost 4 extra panels.
Yeah.
Right. And then in each panel, you could only have so many word balloons with so many words. Right. So it's really about knowing that craft of what you're doing as well. But yeah, you're exactly right about, you know, and sometimes you lose stuff. Right.
Yeah.
Because the story dictates that. My series Tales of Mystery, is my longest going series. And I thought all along, I knew it was going to be X amount of volumes. As I was writing volume 6, something happened with 2 of the characters that literally stepped on the gas. And I'm like, wow, the series is going to be shorter than I thought it was going to be now. And there's things I'm going to lose, but it doesn't matter. Because I'm going to lose these things I thought I was going to do one day. Like you said, like the Google Doc notes or whatever, you know, I'm old, mine are notebooks, right? Like the notebooks with the ideas and you can see Post-it notes. You can see Post-it notes behind me all over the place.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to lose some of this stuff, but it's authentic, but that's going to keep the Tales of Mystery authentic. And it happened over literally one character calling another character and a conversation happened on a phone. And I suddenly lost a chunk of the story that I wanted to tell. That's all right. You know, maybe those pieces will get recycled into something else later. Maybe they won't. But the story now matters. The story is stronger for it. Right. And that's what counts. Yeah. You got to kill your babies, right? You can't worry about every word you write is not going to be precious.
No.
And I also too love this. I feel like when anybody's new at a thing, it's harder to swallow. But I think the more we all work together, any moment like that where you have to kind of backtrack or go back to the drawing board or whatever, it definitely stinks in the moment. But I think you just come out of it just better, or at least it's a learning moment that stays with you, and I think allows you like whatever your next move is, you're already going to be like peak to do that next move, like whether it's to write the next issue or to write the next scene. And I think acknowledging that this is a moment of learning just heightens your skills. It's like a buff, you know what I mean, for like the next chunk of time. It's like you're like, okay, that was rough, but I know this now. Let's go forward with this knowledge.
Yeah. If it's meant to be, if it's not in this story, it'll be in the next story.
Right.
If it's not this time, it'll be down the road. I mean, it'll all come around the way it's supposed to.
Yeah.
You're exactly right.
I gotta say, like the biggest thing that D&D taught me is you plan this,
right,
and the audience sees this.
Yes.
and it's always funny to me because what do you're lying, Ralph. You didn't have a story for that guy and that guy and that guy. Yeah, I usually do. Every once in a while, you guys will surprise me and talk to somebody. I was like, what? You gonna talk to him? But usually everybody in that world that's been put upon for you has a reason for being there. And it's the same thing when you're writing your stories. Everything has its reason for being there. One of the things I enjoy about J.K. Rowling is the fact that, she'll break all the stuff down and she'll give you stuff that she didn't use in the story. Because she's constantly going, oh, by the way, this and this and this and that, because those are all the little snippets, all those little notebooks, that's all that stuff that we left on the cutting room floor.
Yeah, we have to know the characters better than anybody.
Yeah,
right? We have to know the world better than anybody, but that doesn't mean it always shows up. It's like there's things I've known about characters in some of my books that I'm like anxious to get it out there, but you gotta wait till it's organic. Right, you don't want the character to say, "It is me," Johnny Smith, a mint chocolate chip ice cream aficionado, or whatever. No, get to the point when you can have him in an ice cream shop eating mint chocolate chip ice cream. He has a bowl of mint chocolate chip ice cream with him. Then right?
Yeah.
But,
no, it's so tough to hold that, like you know where it's going, you want to get the audience to that, but you just have to be patient.
Mm-hmm.
It's really tough, but you also want to try to avoid that lore dump of all right, this is how magic works in my setting, buckle up, it's gonna be 20 pages. What's the back lexicon?
Right.
That was one of the things that, like, when Lane and I started working on this, even before Jordan, I was like, whatever we do, I just don't want somebody to open up the page, like the first page, and there's just 1,000 text boxes about, in the dawn of the first age of this world. This is just like, please let me figure this out by myself. I'm an adult. I like to look at the world on the page and try to guess, oh, this is cool. This looks like this. Maybe this person's that. It's fun for me. Don't tell me how to.
That's one of those things where, your mileage may vary, subjective.
Right, yes,
like,
okay, yes,
that's something that we don't like. Other people do, but we, we'll see that in something and be like, that's not for us.
Sorry, I'm trying not to yuck anyone's yum. I realize it was hard. It was hard to just kind of say that without doing that, but,
There's a confidence of doing in medias res, right? Jump in the middle. And then just let them figure it as you go. And some people love that, but some don't. But right. But then it becomes a matter of, do I just want to show how cool my world is?
Right.
Or do I want to tell you a good story?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, hey man, we all like Tolkien's, he's a master, I get it, but or Nathaniel Hawthorne, I don't need to spend 15 pages describing a door.
Right.
It's like, okay, it's a door, right? Or they always have their own language. Got it. Let's move on. Let's just tell me the story, right?
Does anyone remember the old Dune, the opening, the 20-minute lore drop at the beginning of the film?
It's like you'd skip all that and figure it out as you go. Right? It's like,
Yeah.
It's funny because it goes back to that what everybody likes to do with their comics. That they have to start with the origin, and to me it's funny because when I started reading comics, I just read comics. I don't even know what story it was, but I jumped into the middle of a story, and I read comics. That's it. I figured things out, and as things went along, it was helpful because at that time Marvel and DC were doing that thing where in issue so and so, if you want to learn more about this, go check out issue 45.
That was really helpful back in the day.
Right. Then you got to go to the comic shop,
and then you go, let's go find issue 45.
Yeah, these people have met before. I need that issue, right? Right? Yeah. That's the fun of it.
Yeah, that's why George Lucas decided he wanted to start with episode 4. That was he wanted to start in the middle of a serial, just like he used to watch Flash Gordon's out of order, and kind of worked out.
Well, would we be talking about Star Wars if we started with this little kid in these pod races?
Yeah.
Probably not.
No.
Absolutely not.
No offense, Jar Jar, but no offense, little kid, but no, right?
And one of the things I do want to bring back, when we're talking writing comics, is it's writing, but it's not writing. You are gonna lose a lot of things, like we've been saying, because you can't put all those words in the comic. They're just, and I've seen some people try to do it.
Yeah.
And
I've seen some letterers get pissed off. It's like, no, you need to stop.
Right. Well, there's scenes I've written. I'm sure you've all done this, where it's like I have to tell the artist, don't bother drawing a background in this panel because look at the dialogue. It's going to be covered. It can be blank. And it's funny working with new artists sometimes, like, oh, but I gotta. Like, no, you don't. I promise you. Just take a marker and just go, wee, and just break circle over it. All these little words in there. No one's gonna see that bookcase behind you because Dirk's big ass word balloon is gonna be right there. Skip it, move on, go to the next panel. Well, I will get to the point. You can draw a bookshelf. I promise you. I promise you, we'll get you there. But this is the time. Just let it go.
And that's one of the arts of writing a comic, is trying to figure out what needs to be there, because you have limited, you've all said this, you have limited, it's just limited in amount of space to tell the story. You have this, especially, who I marvel at is the ones who write comics. They got 4 panels.
Right.
Oh,
the whole story.
Right. Yeah.
Boom. That's when I'm like, whoa. Because I've broken it down. You sit there and you go, okay, this is the comic I'm thinking of. This is how we're going to do it. And you're right. You end up throwing a bunch of stuff away, and you have to figure out how to get it said.
Yeah. All-time favorite, The Far Side by Gary Larson. Yeah. One panel. Usually one sentence.
Yep.
And oftentimes no dialogue in the picture.
Nope.
Genius. It's like sometimes, like I bought the big collection of all of it, and I just open up the random page. Sometimes I look at it and just want to break my own hands because I'm never going to be able to do anything this good, right? It's like, and I write, I don't draw, but even just like the brevity and the impact of it, I'm like, it's just 2 cows. There's no word. How about the silent, right? The G.I. Joe, the silent issue. It's like,
yeah,
it's 2 cows and a snake, and they're not saying anything, and it's genius. I'm like, oh, man. Maybe I don't need all those words after all. Maybe Mr. doesn't need to talk, right?
Folks, I hope you've enjoyed this beautiful romp through writing comics. And there's tons of stuff we haven't even covered. This is just like a basic idea to help you guys out. Hopefully you guys have all that beautiful information. And when you're rewatching, you can rewatch this a couple times. It's how the whole internet thing works. Go rewatch it as many times as you need to rewatch. And if you have questions, leave them in the comment section there and we'll get to them. Dirk, why don't you tell the people what you're working on right now? I'll put it up so they can get a chance to go check you out.
If you're watching this in real time or watching this next couple of days until May 5th, we're wrapping up my latest Kickstarter for my graphic novel, RSVP ESP. It's a book I'm co-writing based on a short story by New York Times bestselling horror author Josh Malerman. It's about a scientist who is trying to prove psychic powers are real, and he finds himself caught in this battle between two Omega-level psychic children who are literally rewriting reality around him. We've unlocked 7 stretch goals so far. This is, I think, my 23rd or 24th graphic novel. First time I've ever got to do a lenticular cover on a graphic novel. I'm really excited about all the movie covers. We've unlocked a leather-bound edition that's going to be Kickstarter exclusive. I hope everybody checks it out. Just go to Kickstarter, type in RSVP, and it'll come up for you. Or go to rsvp-esp.com. This ends May 5th. Last thing to note, everything you see on the campaign, free U.S. shipping for a leather-bound hardcover graphic novel. So what you
I gotta say, Dirk, I always tell you this, but it makes life so much easier when I look at the price and it's the price.
I get it, and I work with Whalebacker, and I've done this long enough that I'm able to kind of navigate what that's going to look like with shipping. Shipping is very expensive. We all know, done Kickstarter. Shipping is expensive and things like that. So I try to accommodate that as well. But it's my pleasure, my honor. So I hope everybody, if you enjoyed this talk, I hope you'll check out our SVP ESP. You can get that beautiful leather. Look at that lenticular cover. That's so cool.
Wee. I gotta say, I always like the lenticular. I'm always like going,
I wanted to do one forever, like 20 years ago, but I, again, had to wait for the right moment. This moment.
See, folks, all this stuff comes into play, like we said.
For a friend of mine says, timing is everything. Timing is everything, and this was the time to finally do the lenticular cover, and I'm glad we waited till this moment because now it's perfect. And if I would have done it sooner, it would have been cool, but it wouldn't have been this.
Truth. All right, Star Side, go for it.
All right. Well, I would say the best thing that folks can do if they're interested in what we're doing is go to starsidecomic.com and sign up for our email newsletter. We don't send very many emails. We just send them like once every few months, filled with lots of good behind-the-scenes stuff and updates. Because right now we don't have anything to promote. But this summer we will be kickstarting the first collected volume of Starside, which is a whopping 7 issues. And issue 7 was extra long, so it's a honker of a trade paperback. And we're also working very hard on a limited hardcover edition that's going to be beautiful. We're really excited about it. So we don't have any links to share for that yet. But if people go to starsidecomic.com or go follow Starside Comic on Instagram, keep in touch with us. We'll be updating about that soon and launching that in the summer, and we're really excited about it.
Just like I did with Dirk's Kickstarter, I will put the Instagram link into the comment section so I don't have to hear my friend go, "Why didn't you put it into the comment section? I'm not gonna go look for it."
This looks cool as heck too. I'm not gonna stare. I'm not gonna say cool as hell because I just signed up for your mailing list because I love this. This looks incredible.
Yeah, the art is beautiful. The story writing is fantastic.
These panel layouts, man.
Hope says that I'll spend 20 minutes playing with the cover before opening the I do.
So good.
All right, Derek, your turn.
Cool. All right. Well, May 10th is going to be my panel at Bronx Community College. It's going to be at 1 p.m. It's going to be a group of panelists talking about pretty much what you heard today of how to make comics, how you too can make comics, our experiences, the highs and the lows. There'll also be time at the end for questions, as well as everyone had opportunity to purchase our books. I myself will be selling Cuba Crusaders. That is the comic that I won the Bronx Recognizes Own Grant Award for. That's the reason I'm doing this panel. And also volume 3 of Ninja Express is just came out. I just got the copies in earlier this week, so this will be the first chance to purchase volume 3.
Nice.
And you can RCP or follow Comics in the Bronx at Comics in Bronx at Facebook or Instagram or at our YouTube channel. You'll even if you can't make it to Bronx Community College, it will also be live streamed on our YouTube channel.
Definitely. We're gonna make sure that you guys can get it, so you guys can ask your questions and enjoy the content. Because what's a good conversation if you guys can't see it? That's the important things, folks. Come on. And there goes the flyer. We will be there May 10th at Bronx Community College. Go check it out. If you guys are in the area, come along. Have some questions. Have some fun. Get creative.
That's awesome. I'm really glad you're doing this, dude. I'm glad it the grant worked out, and it's an awesome awesome event you got going on.
I agree.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to picking up volume 3. We have 1 and 2. Actually, I was most of this conversation. I was trying to be like, where was the last event we saw you at? And I feel like it was recent, but I don't remember. But we have.
It was Anime NYC.
Oh, okay, yeah. That's what I thought there was one after that. Okay, yes. All right, cool. Yeah, so we'll.
Yeah, and Anime NYC, you were just walking around, right?
I was just walking around harassing people,
like them.
But I can't. I just want to say I've been a fan of Starside since the first time we met. I can't wait to finally get my hands on the collected edition. I think I have every issue except 7. So I'll be able to complete the first arc once the Kickstarter goes live. I can't wait.
Yeah, it's funny. We were thinking too about like, all right, well, now that we'll have the volume, like we've been to places where they've only had like maybe the first 5 single issues. Yeah. So we're like, well, we got to bring the single issues with us to events too for people that like want to collect it in that form. Yeah. So we'll be lugging around a lot of stuff.
I just signed up for the newsletter. I liked the Facebook page. I'm all in. I can't wait to see
I appreciate it. Thank you. I also big thank you to Ralph for always connecting us with with great creators, having awesome conversations. It's never a boring conversation when we're on here. I feel quite at home in the StreamYard setup. Yeah.
100%.
A complete compliment, because that's exactly what I try to do is again bring that conversation across the Comic-Con table. There's only one conversation like that, and it is at the cons. And I keep trying to bring that so people can check it out, so they can go check out the cons.
Yeah.
Folks, if you haven't had a chance to go to the con and speak to your favorite creators, that's the place you want to go. You actually get a chance to talk to them, pick their brains, see all this beautiful stuff that we actually get to see here on the show. Of course, the show will be on tomorrow for the written writ, and back on Monday for Apple Bites. 7:30 p.m. Eastern time on Mondays, 10:30 p.m. Eastern time on Wednesdays. And if you guys need to come on and talk about your stuff, send me a DM. Talk to me. See you next time. Folks, I hope you enjoyed this. I always love talking to Dirk. I always love talking to Dylan and Lane. And Derek is always a blast. So, folks, enjoy your night. Get creative. Go create something. Go write a script right now.
Do it.
With that, I'll press the button. And where it stops, nobody knows.